Hi, everybody. Welcome to the weekly Pre-Shabbat AGJC Zoom call. Each week, we gather together the Jewish communities of all 6 GCC countries and our families and friends from around the world to hear an inspirational message before Shabbat, light candles, hear a Dvar Torah, pray, and read a section from the weekly Torah portion. Today, we are honored to hear from my good friend Barak Ravid, who will talk about his book, Trump's Peace, which he has finally translated into English so I can read it. Barak and I met before the signing of the Abraham Accords, and I'm mentioned in the book. So if that's not a good enough incentive for you to buy it, I don't know what is. The ambassador of Gulf, the Association of Gulf Jewish Communities is the umbrella organization for the Jewish communities in the GCC countries that are building and enhancing Jewish life in the region. While each community is independent, we share a common goal and vision for Jewish life to flourish in the Gulf for the benefit of both residents and visitors. To stay updated on AGJC events, please follow us on Twitter at GulfJewish and visit our website, www.gulfjewish.org. Wishing you all a Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you so much, Shuda. And now we will head over to Efrat, who's going to light the Shabbat candles for us.
Thank you so much, Ariella, and Shabbat Shalom from a very, very abnormally warm London. ברוך אתה השם אלוקינו מלך העולם, אשר קידשנו מצוותיו וציוונו להדליק נר של שבת קודש.
Thank you so much, Efrat. It's always a joy to have you with us. So thank you so much for lighting the candles this week. And now we will head over to Avi, who's going to lead us in Yedid Nefesh.
Hi, everyone. Blessed Friday and Shabbat Shalom. Yedid Nefesh Avarachaman Mishoch Avdecha El Ritzonecha Yarutz Avdecha Kemo Ayal Ishachave Muladarecha Ki Yarav Lo Yedidotecha Minofetzu Fechotam Adonai Ziv Haolam Nafshi Cholat Avatecha Ana El Narfana La Be'arat La Noam Zivecha Az Titchazek V'Titrape V'Haita La Simchat Olam Vatik Yemuna Rachamecha V'chusana Al Ben Ahuvecha Ki ze kama nechsof nechsafti lirot betiferet uzecha anai lechem dalibi chusana ve'al titalam igalena ufos chavivi alai et sukat shelomecha ta'ir eretz mikvodecha Nagila v'nismecha bach Ma'erehov ki ba'moed v'chanenu ki me'olam.
Thank you so much, Avi. And now we will turn over to Alex, who's going to do Lecha Dodi.
Lecha Dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat nekabela. Shahamor v'zacho b'dibor echad. Ishmiyanu el hameyuchat Adonai echad u'shmo echad v'shem al tiferet v'letihila. Lecha Dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat nekabela. Shahamor v'zacho b'dibor echad. Ishmiyanu el hameyuchad Adonai echad u'shemo echad v'shem al tiferet v'letihila. Lecha Dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat nekabela. לך אדוני לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לקראת שבת לכוון אליך, כי מקור הברכה מהראש מקדם נסוך, סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. לך אדוני לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך אדוני לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. מקדש מלך עיר מלוכה, קום יצאי מתוך ההפכה, רהב לך שבט בימי קבחה, ויהיו יחמול עלייך חמלה. לך אדוני לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך אדוני לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. ימין ושמאל תפרוצי, ואת אדוני תריצי, על יד איש בן פרצי, ונשמחה ונגילה. לך אדוני לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך אדוני לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. בואי בשלום עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה. בואי חלה. לך אדוני לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך אדוני לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה.
Thank you so much, Alex. And now to introduce our speaker, we have Ambassador Eitan Naeh, who's going to introduce Barak.
Hello, everybody. Shabbat Shalom. I think that Barak Ravid is one of the most famous Israeli journalists and needs not long introductions. But Barak was very involved in covering Israeli Arab, Israeli Middle East, of course, and the Abraham Accords from the outset. If you haven't yet read his book, please do. A great insight into what happened here behind everybody's back. So without further ado, Barak Ravid, a pleasure and honor.
Thank you, Eitan, and thanks to all of you for being here on this call. And it's actually very, for me, it's very moving because, you know, I look at the names of the people in this call, and some of the names are names that I've known in the last, 3 years since I started writing my book. I got to know not only them, but their families and their parents and their grandparents and their grandparents and everything that happened in this community. And it's amazing to see it, to see now the faces of the people today. One of the amazing things, the amazing stories I've learned while I wrote the book was about the very small Jewish community in Saudi Arabia of the 19th century, of a community of 8 people that mostly were, traders and merchants. And, it's all of those things that, for a lot of people, especially here in Israel, they have no clue that in this region, there were Jewish communities. And one of the things that I remember coming to Bahrain for the first time, it was in, I think, for the economic conference for the Peace and Prosperity Conference. It was 2019 or 2018, I can't remember. And we came to the market and to the synagogue, and it was, and I'm not a religious person at all. It's not my thing, but still coming to the heart of the Gulf and standing in the synagogue, which is more than 100 years old, and in a community that is there for, again, more than 100 years. It's really something. And in a country that, at least I never thought that in my lifetime I will be part of such a thing. And so it's, for me, again, it's really moving to be here and talk to all of you. And I think that the Abraham Accords, what is special for the group of people here on this call, that for most of you, the Abraham Accords were not just, a headline on TV or in the newspaper, or, something that you heard about. It's something that touched your lives in the most personal way possible. Meaning that, it changed the way, I think it was 2 weeks ago, and I met Huda in Israel, which is something that when I met Huda for the first time in Bahrain, I didn't know if we'll ever be able to meet in Israel. And and there are a lot of other examples. I remember when I was later in Bahrain for, on a private trip, I just met on the street a group of 3 Israelis that I asked them, "What are you doing here?" So they said, "Oh, we came to see the house of our grandparents." And we did something that we never thought we would be able to do in our lives. So it's all of those things that I think the Abraham Accords touched your lives in the most personal way. And I tell a lot of people that, my book, The Abraham Accords, Trump's piece, The Abraham Accords and the Reshaping of the Middle East, is, not only about the past, meaning it doesn't only tell the story of how those relationships were formed and the accords and all of that. It's also about the future. It tells the story of what is going to be and what can be from now on. And part of it is also, again, how you build the Jewish communities in those countries that some of them were sort of staying in very, very low profile, like the one in the UAE. And I think that right now it's I was just in Abu Dhabi a few months ago for the wedding of Avi Berkowitz, one of the architects of the Abraham Accords, and the wedding was in the Abrahamic family house in Abu Dhabi, and it was the first Jewish wedding at the synagogue at the Abrahamic family house. And you stand there and it's unbelievable. When the Abraham Accords happened, I thought it was a huge thing. When my book was published in December 2021, I said, wow, this is really a huge thing. Now I know that it's really a huge thing. But today, I even think it's even bigger. So this thing is still alive, and it's continuing on and on and on. And I want to talk to you not only about the Abraham Accords themselves, but about what's next. Because Huda was accurate when she said that I finally published the book in English, because the Hebrew version was out in December 2021. It took me some time, and a lot of things happened during this period. So I just added a new chapter of the first 2 years of the Biden administration and how he tried to strengthen the Abraham Accords. And the book ends with a question mark. And the question mark is, and I guess all of you are asking yourselves the same thing, is what's next? Meaning, how can the Abraham Accords continue? How can we get more countries to get on board? And the main question today is Saudi Arabia. And I think that we are in an amazing period in time where in the next 6 to 8 months, there's really, I don't know if I want to say a big window of opportunity, but there is a window of opportunity to get the next country into the Abraham Accords, and this is Saudi Arabia. And I think that when the Saudis look at the UAE, when the Saudis look at Bahrain, when the Saudis look at Morocco, I think what they tell themselves is, in many ways, even if it's hard, even if they're still not ready, they still tell themselves, wow, we want this too. We want this too. Even if we can't do it yet, we want this too. And I think that in the next 6 to 8 months, we will see whether it's possible to build this package between the same triangle that built the peace treaty with the UAE and the peace treaty with Bahrain and with Morocco, Israel, Saudi Arabia, and the US, whether it's possible to get something done. I'm relatively, I'm usually a very pessimistic person, as people on the call who know me know that I'm not a big optimist, but on this thing, I have to tell you that I'm more optimistic. And I think that there is a chance, and it's in the hands of both, obviously, the Israeli government, the Biden administration, and obviously the government of Saudi Arabia. Each party will have to give up on things that are important for him in order to gain other things that are important. And like any deal, you win some, you lose some, you need to make compromises. But at the end of the day, I think that what we learned from the Abraham Accords is that long-term, and it's not that long, we've just been, less than 3 years, I think it's obvious that we can say that it's a success story. And even if there are hurdles and even if there are difficulties, I remember when in May 2021, there was the war in Gaza. And I was very concerned because, it was the first big challenge for the Abraham Accords. And I remember that I met an Emirati official after the war, and I asked him, were you considering backtracking on the whole thing, on cutting relations? And he looked at me like I fell from the moon, and he said, are you crazy? I said, yeah, but war in Gaza, it was difficult time. And he said, you Israelis have to understand that for us, the whole point of having relations with you is that when there is a war in Gaza, we will be able to pick up the phone or call in your ambassador or come to Israel on the ground and have a serious discussion about it, and instead of just issuing condemnations, to look you in the eye and say, we want you to do this, or we don't want you to do that, and you will tell us your opinion, and we'll be able to maybe get something done, and not only issue statements at each other. And I thought that moment showed that there's, I think, even though, and I'm sure there will be many very difficult times, and we are today in a very difficult time, but still, I think those agreements on both sides are strategic, and they will, I think they passed the point of no return, at least for now. And I think it's very positive thing. My book, Trump's Peace, is on Amazon. I hope that all of you will find it interesting and interesting enough to order it. And if you do, please, and if you order it and you read it, I have one request for you. Please call me or email me or send me a direct message on Twitter and tell me what you thought, because this is really a very personal thing for me. And every person who read the book is, for me, very, very important. And I really want to hear your thoughts. This was my short presentation. And if you have time, if you want, I'm ready to answer any question you have.
Wow, what an opportunity to ask Barak any questions. So I guess we'll field it. If there's anybody you could click on Zoom. I know we don't usually do questions, but I think a lot of you.
I have time, so
Yeah, there you go. I think a lot of you follow him on Twitter now to hear from him kind of directly. So if that's the case, Barak, maybe we'll just we'll give, if anybody wants to quickly, you could raise your hand on the Zoom function, and then we'll take any questions. Okay, I think I see Ephraim has a quick question if you want to unmute. I think you're muted, Ephraim.
Why call it Trump's peace? It's bigger than Trump. This peace.
It's a great question. A lot of people ask me this. I'll tell you why. Because I think one of my main conclusions was that at that point in time, if Donald Trump wasn't the president of the United States, we couldn't have gotten those agreements. I'm not saying that maybe down the road in the future, it would have been possible. I guess it would have been. But at that point in time, Trump was, I think, instrumental to those agreements for 3 reasons. The first reason was because he managed to close down the trust gap between the US and the Gulf states, and the US and Israel, a trust gap that opened up during the Obama presidency. Second thing is that he appointed the people closest to him, his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, to deal with this thing. And I think it was a decision that was criticized in the US, but in the region, I think a lot of people understood from that decision that this is important for the president, and therefore they should pay attention. And the third thing is that Donald Trump was ready to put his hand in his pocket and take out tangible deliverables to countries in the region so that it will be worth it for them to take this leap that wasn't necessarily easy politically or in public opinion. And I think that another president might not have done those 3 things, and therefore I thought it was warranted to call the book Trump's Peace.
Thank you so much. And now, Abdullah, I think you have a question as well. If you want to just unmute.
Yeah, I have. Barak, first of all, I thank Huda and Ambassador Ney for the invitation. But just bear with me for 5 seconds. I want to show you something very, very interesting. And that's going to reinforce what you have said about the Abrahamic Accords. Look where I am.
I think, unfortunately,
Abdullah, you froze.
Yeah, Abdullah, we lost you for a second.
Yeah, okay. I just want to show you, I am in Herzliya. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, if that doesn't reinforce that public diplomacy could do more than official diplomacy, that's a fact. But I wanted to address a point that I believe is going to be very stressful for future prospect of Saudi-Israeli relationship. You see, the Saudis have invested so much in the psychological or the social normalization, okay, cultural, with the Israelis. But at the present time, all the Israelis are pushing for is one thing. One, which is the diplomatic recognition. And you shouldn't continue pushing, because this is something organic, and it is in the, and the work. So I would wish very much for the Israeli intellectuals to, put a lid, in a way, tactical lid on this mechanism to start with. The other point is, if you're going to continue like this, unfortunately, you're going to drive everybody into, I believe politically, you are suffering from tunnel vision if you just focus on normalizing with Saudi Arabia. It's going to be very, very stressful for all of us, because at the end of the day, unfortunately, you're going to play this into somebody else's hand, and it's going to be used the wrong way. Okay. And the other part of my comment is, I don't believe that the Saudis are not ready. Actually, I believe the Israelis are not ready. And this is what needs to be brought into perspective. What we need to do is take a step back. And I promise you, when everybody is ready, it's going to happen organically and without any due process. And I tell everybody, including Ambassador Ney, this, it is closer. The distance between Tel Aviv and Riyadh is far much shorter than the distance between Riyadh or Tel Aviv to DC. So let us regionally work out certain details, because if we're going to continue, hoping for the American to twist their Saudi arms into recognition, I can assure you it's not going to happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then we'll have one final question from Isaac.
Thank you. I haven't read the book yet, but I've ordered it on Amazon as you were talking. I just come back from Dubai late last night, and you mentioned before that you are sometimes not very positive. How can you not be positive coming back from any place like Bahrain or Dubai to Israel?
No, I meant that usually my scenarios about the future of Israel and the region are usually pessimistic. It's usually when you're a pessimist here, unfortunately, you're most of the time you're not wrong. But I agree with you that when I came back from every trip to Bahrain and Abu Dhabi, it was actually a very, very optimistic and positive trip, because again, for me, it's really something that you sit in the middle of the Gulf and you feel welcome, and you don't feel any sense of tension or animosity or anything, and you're surrounded not only by either Bahrainis or Emiratis, but by people from the entire region. And it's really something, because I'm telling you again, I never thought that in my lifetime I would have this experience. I thought it would never happen. And so for me and for my kids, this is a very, this is really something. I went with my kids to Abu Dhabi, and we went to Al Ain on the border with Oman. And, we were there for the whole day. And then we went for lunch at the Syrian restaurant, a restaurant that Syrian refugees opened in Al Ain. And they asked us where, because they heard that we were speaking a language that they didn't really know how to put their finger. Said, "Where are you from?" So he said, "We're from Israel." And then those guys from Syria, which is just, think about it, it's a surreal situation. You're sitting in a restaurant in Al Ain in Abu Dhabi, speaking to people from Syria. What more can you ask? For me, it was just because those interactions with people, and Abdallah, I think you're right that those, at the end of the day, the interactions between people are what matters, and that's why the ability to move from place to place in the region and to meet people that you couldn't until recently is something that I think lowers dramatically misconceptions and stigmas, and even sometimes allow you to really have an argument, really bad argument and really tough argument with people that don't agree with you, but that you were never able to even have this argument with. So it's for me, it's really special.
Thank you so much, Barak. I know there are a few more questions that came in after the final one, and it really does. It feels terrible to be able to have to say we have to move on just because of Shabbat coming in. But as Barak mentioned, he's really, really very accessible if you want to DM him and ask any further follow-ups. I also just want to thank, again, Ambassador Naeh for introducing Barak. And I also want to acknowledge that Ambassador Al-Jalama, who's Bahrain's ambassador to Israel, has joined us on the call. So it's really special to have you both with us. And in many ways goes to underscore just how special this Zoom is in general. So before we move on to Torah reading, I just want to say that Barak himself has reported on a lot of the historic events that have gone on in the region, but he himself was also part of one when he referenced Peace to Prosperity, and there were only 7 Israeli journalists who were allowed in for that, Barak remembers, and he was one of them. So that was really a special moment. And I think at the time, I remember, doing a pre-interview with you with one of our clients, and we talked about how we thought that event itself was a big deal. Little do we know that the Abraham Accords would be coming, about a year or so later. So that was pretty special. And after they did the interview, we were standing in the lobby of the hotel, and Barak had called into the studio to say he was sending it over. And for me, as somebody who had been to Bahrain before, it was the first time I had heard Hebrew, so spoken so openly in Bahrain. And I remember standing there and saying that, like, this was like something exciting was going to happen. So I just want to say that we all appreciate, your reporting, but we also want to recognize, the significant role that you've played as part of that story. So just wanted to say thank you all for joining us, and thank you, Barak. And I guess one last plug for those of you who haven't seen it, you have to watch the series that he did a few years back. It was called Secrets of the Gulf. And for everybody who's wondering where different countries stand on this, it's really, really exciting to watch it. It would definitely encourage you all to do so. And now we'll move over back to Alex, who's going to read from this week's Torah portion.
Thank you, Barak. That was really interesting. I must say that I read your book in Hebrew and in English. And in English, you had this next chapter about the Biden administration, which was not written yet in the Hebrew version. So continue translating it. Maybe next time you translate it in French, in Spanish, or even in Arabic. I guess we will talk maybe about Saudi Arabia too. So thank you so much. ויקח קורח בן יצהר בן כת בני לוי ודתן ואבירם בני אליהו ואון בן פלט בני ראובן ויקומו לפני משה ואנשים מבני ישראל 50 ו200 נשיאי עדה קריאי מועד אנשי שם ויקהלו על משה ועל אהרון ויאמרו עליהם רב לכם כי כל העדה כולם קדושים ובתוכם אדוני ומדוע תתנסו על קהל אדוני וישמע משה ויפול על פניו וידבר אל קורח ואל כל עדתו לאמור בוקר ויודע אדוני את אשר לו ואת הקדוש ויקריב אליו וית אשר יבחר בו יקריב אליו זאת עשו קחו לכם מחטות קורח בכל עדתו ותנו בהן אש ושימו עליהם קטורת לפני אדוני מחר והיה האיש אשר יבחר אדוני הוא הקדוש רב לכם בני לוי.
Thank you, Alex. And now we will head over to Eric, who's going to read the English translation.
Thank you for having me, and it's great to be here. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Now Korah, son of Ishar, son of Kohath, son of Levi, betook himself along with Dathan and Abiram, sons of Eliab, and On, son of Peleth, descendants of Reuben, to rise up against Moses, together with 250 Israelites, chieftains of the community, chosen in the assembly, men of repute. They combined against Moses and Aaron and said to them, "You have gone too far. For all the community are holy, all of them, and Adonai is in their midst. Why then do you raise yourselves above Adonai's congregation?" When Moses heard this, he fell on his face. Then he spoke to Korah and all his company, saying, "Come morning, Adonai will make known who is God's and who is holy by granting direct access, and whom God has chosen will be granted access. Do this, you, Korah, and all your band, take fire pans, and tomorrow put fire in them and lay incense on them before Adonai. Then the candidate who Adonai chooses, he shall be the Holy One. You have gone too far, sons of Levi. Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you so much, Eric. And now we're going to turn to Sue. So we'll shift the camera over for the prayer for the GCC.
Yeah. May he who gives salvation to kings and dominion to princes, his kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, who delivers his servant David from the evil sword, who makes a way in the sea and a path through the mighty waters. Bless and protect, guard and help, exalt, magnify, and uplift His Majesty, the King of Saudi Arabia, His Majesty, the King of Bahrain, His Majesty, the Sultan of Oman, His Highness, the President of the UAE, His Highness, the Emir of Kuwait, His Highness, the Emir of Qatar, and all their crown princes. And may the Supreme King of Kings, in his mercy, put a spirit of wisdom and understanding into their hearts and the hearts of all their counselors and officials to deal kindly with us, the house of Jacob, and all the people of this land. Be their shelter and stronghold, and let them not falter. In their days and in ours, may these lands be blessed with stability, prosperity, and peace. May this be his will, and let us say, Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much. And before we turn back to Avi, who's going to usher us out with Shalom Aleichem, just a quick reminder to please join us next Friday, same time, same place, and same Zoom link. We've got some more exciting speakers coming up, and it's always a joy to have you all with us. So now, Avi, without further ado, please lead us out.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Asharet, Malachei Elyon. Mi melech malachei amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem l'shalom, malachei Shalom, malachei Elyon. Mi melech malachei amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Barchuni l'shalom, malachei Shalom, malachei Elyon. Mi melech malachei amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzedchem l'shalom, malachei Shalom, malachei Elyon. Mi melech malachei amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Thank you so
Shabbat-
much.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.